Hey, good evening, Anand.
Good evening, Mahesh.
How are you?
Doing great.
So, welcome to this evening conversation on inspiring to succeed. Uh, I think it's a great topic to have this evening talking about. So, why don't we do this thing, Anand? Can you just tell us a bit about you, uh, uh, and then we'll keep going?
Okay. I'm an electrical engineer by education, passed out of Bangalore University. Then I moved to an engineering organization, which taught me a lot of good lessons in the initial part of my career. Then around 2000, I moved into the IT part, and my journey has been so far very rewarding. In 2007, I accidentally jumped into a project. Uh, it was a product development in a services organization, which is a rare combination to get. So we did all what Agile Scrum proposes us not to do. We did exactly opposite, and we learned a lot of good lessons. So since then, I decided to shape my career in a field where I can actually educate people the right way of doing Agile and reaping the fruits. So since 2012, I started working with various customers who wanted to undergo transformation. Then I realized that one of the roles that I can play is a coach role. So since 2013, I'm playing a role of a coach. Since August 2014, I've been with Philips as a consultant, and I'm trying my best to help Philips to transform into the scaled agile framework that they have adopted. And so far, I've enjoyed my work every day.
Awesome. Awesome. So let me introduce myself. Hi, everybody. Good evening. My name is Mahesh Varadharajan. So I work for Solutions IQ here in India as a senior agile consultant. Primarily, I'm based out of Chennai, and I have over 6+ years of agile consulting and coaching experience now. I'm working on my third bigger enterprise agile transformation. Uh, so primarily, I have one company which was a global automotive major, telecom major, and currently supporting a global payments major. So those are the diversified, background with which I come from. Uh, so without wasting much time, let's get started with the topic for the day. So Anand, I think uh, would you like to tell us more about what does inspire to succeed resonate with you?
Um, there's something called as a reason of why we do some work. Okay, a thief has a knife in the hand. A surgeon has a blade in the hand. Both wants to cut something, but the intent behind the cutting is different. One is to take life, one is to save life. So what makes me thrill is trying to work with people. I like to work with people because over a period of time I've realized that working with people is the most difficult thing. All others are machines. Only human being has emotions. So working with emotions is very difficult compared to working with missions. And all missions listen to what you say. Human beings don't listen to what we say. So I love working with people. I love the challenges that we have dealing with people, emotions, etc.
Absolutely. So I think it very well resonates with me, Anand. So I chose this, field primarily because I work always, talking to people, getting to know them, dealing with their feelings, emotions, and how can we contribute for the betterment of the community. So, having said that, the theme for this evening's talk is how can leadership in organizations, inspire to succeed in the transformations. So, given that, what would you, regard as a leader, qualities of a leader, Anand?
Say a leader is typically an individual uh, who has varieties of important skills. One is the leader should have empathy, right? They
Mhm,
should
mhm.
they should have an affinity towards working with people. And a leader should have something like a desire to solve problems.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, a leader should also possess ability to control things. A leader should also be highly disciplined. And in short, leader is somebody who engages with their customers, people every day, continuously. Or all you can say is a leader never closes his eyes.
Awesome, awesome. So if I got you, one of the key things that you just stopped, it sounds to me like strong listening skills. That's where you talk. A leader never stops hearing you. So, what has been your experience about, uh, you know, uh, what kind of leaders that you have come along in your industry's experience? What would you, got to talk about that?
I've experienced great leaders. I've experienced bad leaders. I've experienced leaders that are either both they're on the wall, so they can jump on either side based on the situation. Again, leadership is all about situation, right? It's all about situation. There's nothing like a bad leader or a good leader. It
Uh-huh.
all the situation that drives the leader's behavior, right? I'll take a lot of references from Devdutt Patnaik to explain these concepts in this chat, right?
Sure.
So as a leader, you'll have to have a lot of observation skills, right? Based on the observation, you need to take decisions. Now, if you take the case of Ramayana, the hero was Ram, the villain was Ravan, right? Ravan was one individual who broke all the rules, right? So Ram took up stand where he became a rule follower to handle a person who has completely broken all the rules. In case of Mahabharat, Duryodhana is the villain and Krishna is the hero. Now Duryodhana was a guy who followed all the rules. He just went by the book. He just went by Scrum guide kind of statements. But Krishna took the role of bending all the rules. He defied all the rules to kill Duryodhana. So it all depends on how you observe the situation and then take actions. So that's why I said there's nothing like a bad reader or a good reader. It's all our perception. But for me, a good leader is a person who cares for people and shows empathy for customers. I think if we can have these basic qualities, then people would start following. The initial stages are going to be tough, no doubt about it. But I think at the end of the day, the leader would be very successful.
Absolutely. So I think I very well agree with you, and it's been my experience as well. Uh, to me, one of the other things, Anand, I kind of see is most companies that really have the intent for the change. One of the things they struggle with, getting part of that system. Hey, Mahesh, you know what? You need to understand our processes, the way we work, so that we are very special or unique and things like that. So what do you think about, is it got to do with culture? We have a rich mythology that you just talked about. So what has been your experience, in terms of the culture in here in India, on our leaders?
See, culturally, let me talk about a small model that I've kind of evolved over a period of time. I
Uh-huh.
call this as the MBA model, right? M stands for measurement, B stands for behavior, and A stands for action. So your behavior is based on your measurement, and your action is based on your behaviors. End of the day, an individual's behavior and actions is completely aligned to what how they get measured. I'll give you a simple example. I was watching a TED talk in one of the TED talks from a LinkedIn VP who is by birth from Argentina. He
Mm-hmm.
said America can never win a football match against Argentina.
Mm.
So he said the reason is the way how they've arranged the teams. So what they say is they break the team into two groups, right? It is this non-systemic thinking that they do. They divide and conquer. So they set the goals for the forward group, saying that you get credit only when you hit goals on the opposite side, and they give the goals to the defenders, saying that you get credit only when you prevent the opponent hitting goals on your side. So somehow they get when you logically add both of them, you become the winner. But that is not the case. Now, if you whether you win 1-0 or 199, you still win the Gold Cup. Just imagine what happens to the emotions when you hit 1-0. Your
mm,
forward is extremely disappointed because they hit only one goal in 90 minutes plus extra time, injury time, etc. Your defenders are extremely happy. So you see
mm,
half the team unhappy though you win the game. And when you win with 199, you still win the game. Your forward is extremely happy because they were able to hit 100 goals, and now your defenders are very unhappy because they let go 99 goals. End of the day, though you win the World Cup, you have half the team always upset, unhappy.
mm,
Right? This is exactly what is happening in organizations when they do the transformation.
mm,
And you divide the Scrum into developers, testers, and then give conflicting objectives to them. And now
mm,
you expect them to work as one team. Sorry, it doesn't work.
mm,
Instead, how about giving the team one objective? I don't care
mm,
how many defects you find. Let us work in such a way that the customers do not find defects in our code. Then
mm,
you see how remarkably they work. That's the kind of a goal Argentina has got. The goal for the Argentina team is no matter how much our opponent hits you, you have to hit one more than the opponent. You still
mm,
win the World Cup. So I
mm.
think this systemic thinking is a big problem in our leaders. Indian IT industry is predominantly a delivery organization, right? We have buildings called as company ABC Development Center,
Mm,
right? Where the focus is only do development, deploy the code. That's it. We really don't care
mm.
whether we are solving anybody's problem or not. Unless you come out of this mindset and start looking at the big picture, I somehow feel that for the Indian leaders, agile transformation is always a challenge.
Great. So maybe this is where even I was thinking about knowing the why before the what and the how. So we would say values and principles over practices, but then before you value something, you need to know, what does that resonate with you? Does the value really resonate with you? And the beginning is, what's your problem? What's your vision? And in my experience, the first thing, the inspiration comes from the vision or the purpose. So, for example, uh, trying to gain competitive advantage by launching a product in time, if that is has been your strategic problem, you want to just focus on one at a time, and then there are a number of ways to go about achieving it. So I think most companies, Anand, in my experience, that has answered or what is it that you be intend to do, and then get later into how do we go about doing that, have been far more successful, because you know why, and then the path is very clear thereafter. So what do you think about, is it because just that everybody end of the day wants to go to the market, which is delivery focused? So what are the things that you see are enablers from a leadership perspective to inspire to succeed, and what do you think are some of the impeding forces?
Okay. Um, let's again go back to the story of Mahabharata, where
Uh-huh.
where Vishnu in the second avatar takes the form of a tortoise,
Mm,
right? So what is happening there is a mountain that's being churned. There are two forces which are pulling the mountain in opposite directions. When one force pulls, the other force will release. When one force, the other force pulls, the first force will release it. So that causes a churn.
mm,
A- Agile transformation is also a churn in the organization. A lot of things will change.
mm,
So during this churning that happens on the mountain, where is the leader?
mm,
Vishnu takes the form of a tortoise and comes inside the water at the ground level.
mm,
That is the most important aspect, I would say, that will help agile transformation. When the leaders come to the ground level, they really understand the pain of transformation. They are able to understand, they're able to address the emotions of people who are undergoing it. I
mm,
can give you a lot of examples why people quit organization during agile transformation. I had a person in my experience who quit the organization. He was an excellent architect. Everything was great, but there was only one problem. What happened was after the organization decided to do agile, they decided to change the seating arrangements. And this guy who was supposed to become a senior manager kind of a stuff was supposed to get a cabin. Just because he did not get the cabin, he quit the organization. So
mm,
unless you understand the emotions of people, people will not stick us for some time. It was not money, it was not responsibility, it was only a cabin. For us, it's a very small thing which is of not very importance, but for that individual, that mattered most.
mm,
So if you are a true leader, you'll have to come to the ground and say, this is exactly what you call as Gemba in lean, right?
mm,
You have to come to the shop floor to understand the problem.
mm,
That's one important thing. The second is the leaders should fail. Nobody has done job for the first time. Thomas Alva Edison took 1000 times to invent the bulb, and he said, I found 999 ways of not doing the right thing. Right? But unfortunately, our leaders here feel that the teams have to do for the first time perfectly.
mm,
Have we learned cycling for the first time? Did we
mm,
learn how to eat for the first time? Did we
mm,
learn how to walk for the first time? No, it's a journey that we have taken. And what did at all these three examples, what I said, there was somebody who was encouraging us and showing us the right direction.
mm,
Similarly, in an organization, I would request the leaders to start guiding the people to show them the right direction. And the third most important thing is something called a mental models.
mm,
Every leader believes that there is only one way to solve the problem. There is absolutely only one way to solve the problem. There are no two ways to solve the problem. And if somebody comes two ways, they take it as a challenging the leader.
mm,
Is there any organization in this world which rewards people who challenges the management? No,
mm,
there is no organization. Maybe there are organizations that I am not aware of, but as far as I know, no rewards are given to people because they asked uncomfortable questions.
mm,
These are the three reasons I feel primarily why organizations fail. The other important factors why agile succeeds in organization is that there is enormous amount of trust and empowerment in the leadership onto the people. Right?
absolutely.
Organizations are not bureaucratic; they are small, so there is a lot of open, transparent communications, and trust is flowing. Right? Trust is something that is there everywhere abundantly. Right? Second one, leaders take risk. They are not afraid of failure.
Mm,
You must have heard the story of Herb Keller, who was the ex CEO of Southwest Airlines.
mhm,
He received an email from one of his employees saying that, look, you have been always telling that put customers first. So there was a situation where 8 people from Baltimore station. This was written by one of their staff to the
uh-huh,
CEO, saying that there were 8 people who were supposed to fly from Baltimore to take their degree. The journey was only about 45 minutes, but unfortunately, because of the bad weather, the flights got cancelled, and all of them were so disappointed that they couldn't travel. So I have booked a bus for them with my credit card, and I've made them to go receive their receive their degree certificates. So he said, "Can you please reimburse it?"
mm,
So Herb Keller called her in front of every staff in their quarterly meeting and awarded her.
mm,
Now, people are there is a decentralization in organization. People can take their own decisions. No need to ask. This is a decision made for a transaction which involved money. How many of us have that right in the organization to take decisions which involves money, wherein you don't take anybody's approval? Right?
mm,
So that's the kind of a big mindset change we need to bring in. If we really have to take, people should take decisions on their own.
mm.
That's what they feel best to the customer, and they should not be afraid of failure. It looks to be a very idealistic, but I think that's the real environment we need to go towards to.
Sure. So before we go further on, and for the benefit of our listeners today, this evening, I just wanted to mention about, if at all, somebody have questions, you can post it in our Twitter handle, hashtag RSGI 2017, and we should be able to answer them, if we see them. So I would once again repeat the Twitter handle, hashtag RSGI 2017. All right. So coming back to the inspiration, inspire to succeed. Uh, uh, Anand, at this time, I would like to bring up, the work of Daniel Pink about what motivates knowledge workers. Lot of the times, in transformations, when we are talking about, awarding the team, not just the heroes, one of the major things is using understanding about this intrinsic motivation, where you talked about coming back to the ground and understanding the people's feelings. So, as we all know, the book called The Drive talks about the three major factors that motivates knowledge workers, which is autonomy, mastery, and purpose. So, I think today most of the product development companies tend to do knowledge work, which means the good old measures, the good old ways and means of rewarding high performance needs to be, rethought through. So it's just not that you're intent and committed to change, but how you go about recognizing the high performance in an organization goes back to a lot in terms of what do you see on the results part of it. I would also like to, at this point, bring about a metaphor, uh, in terms of how do we accomplish a shared goal. So Anand, all of us, we are, I being in India, the sports that we love, the cricket. How would it be? This is the analogy that I quote in a lot of my trainings. How would it be if, after every over change, had to come on the ground and literally guide people on what to take in terms of the fielding positions? So, are we going to be patient enough in watching that match, or what kind of natural things that we see? So, to me, does it mean that those kind of things do not have a strategy? Not at all. So, when we are talking about larger matches, they do have a strategy. They do know what is the end result, but then they don't talk about it while on the ground. So they learn from the past, but they are not focused on the past. They are focused on the result, winning the match. So that to me is self-organization, and maybe one of the other things as an end result that I have seen on, and you can also quote me, or rather, one of the things in a good leader I've seen with winning a match or losing a match, when the team wins, the credit goes to the team. And when the team loses a match, the leader takes the responsibility on him and doesn't say, this is why I told you this does not work. And that to me is inspiring to succeed. So when you tell people that, any credit comes to me, but anything that falls back, you will be fired or you will have to face the consequences. People are not going to shift thinking. And
Yes.
that also is part of the mindset change.
Yeah.
So that is a systems thinking approach. So what do you think, Anand, in terms of, the key things towards, so far we have talked about the need for shift in mindset. What should be the steps that we go about to institutionalizing the shift in mindset? How do we go about that? Very easy to say, right?
Yeah. One of the biggest change in the thought process is, I always like the statement where I've read it somewhere, that every human being has become a master in doing the wrong things right. We never focus on doing the right things wrong. Right. Right. So whatever we do, it is a wrong, but we try to prove it is the right way to do.
Hmm.
Right. We spend a lot of time and energy to prove what we have done is the right. But if it slightly change the focus to focus on doing the right thing wrong, we realize that we have done something wrong. There is a huge opportunity to improve.
Hmm.
And that's exactly what a concept of inspect adapt, what agile talks in the agile world, where we talk about the concept of inspect adapt retrospectives. Focus on what you've done, see what can be done right, and then focus on the right thing. It's okay to do mistakes. Human beings have never done anything first for the first time. We've never done anything right. It's okay to do mistake, but it's a crime to repeat the same mistake again. But now, if you're trying to do the wrong things right, you will always be repeating the mistake. So that is the first change that I ask in the leader's mindset.
Hmm.
This is exactly what Peter Drucker also said, right? That we should start focus on doing the right things rather than doing things right.
Hmm.
So there is something called as the content of the hierarchy of mind.
Hmm.
It says an ounce of information is worth a pound of data.
mm,
An ounce of knowledge is worth a pound of information. An ounce of understanding is worth a pound of knowledge. And
mhm.
an ounce of wisdom is worth a pound of understanding. So
Wow.
hierarchy is data, information, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom.
Mm,
As leaders, we need to focus on wisdom.
mm,
Unfortunately, we are stuck with data. Data
mm,
is like iron ore,
mm,
right? You can't do anything with iron ore. You need information to convert that iron ore into a metal.
mm,
You need the knowledge of what to do with that metal, and you need to have an understanding of what needs to be done so that it can be used, and wisdom is doing the right thing. So while
mm,
data, information, knowledge, and understanding focuses on efficiency, wisdom focuses on effectiveness.
mm.
So the first change I ask in leaders is stop focusing on data, start focusing on efficiency. I think we can get efficiency. Focus on effectiveness.
Absolutely.
Right. That's the
Absolutely.
first change that I ask. The second change I ask is about measurements. We are ingrained in our measurements. We don't know what to measure. Let me be honest. We measure without a reference to a measuring scale.
Mm.
Right? We are so biased in our measurements. We
Yeah.
measure. For example, in the agile world, the big blunder that organizations are doing is they base their ROI on velocity.
Mm,
And I've seen leadership in certain organization pushing the teams to improve their velocity.
mm,
Right? Velocity is not it's not at all it's a metric.
mm,
Velocity is just a measure.
mm,
What you need to measure is cycle time. What you
mm,
need to measure is quality. What you
mm,
need to measure is time to market. What you
mm,
need to measure is something very qualitative.
mm,
How many customers are using our products? Are really customers liking our product? That is something
mm,
you cannot measure, right? You should experience it. When customers
mm,
say that, when customers say that, I mean, by the way, when do we know that the product what we have bought is really great? Only when
mm,
we forget the price what we have paid.
mm,
When the customers say that I really don't know how much I paid, but the product works great, that's the ultimate satisfaction an organization will get, because product is working for so long that the customers have even forgotten what price they had paid for it.
mm.
Right? So we need to focus on these aspects of measurement, not on lines of code. On one point of time, the more lines of code you write, the more efficiency was the code. Today we are focusing on reducing the number of lines of code.
Absolutely.
Then how do you use the same metrics for what you are doing before now?
Absolutely.
Right? So these are certain aspects that we need to start thinking very differently. How do you measure quality?
Mm,
Quality is measured where people start liking it. That's exactly what Goldratt had said in his book. He said that an organization, especially a factory, can only survive if the organization focus on three important things. One is they have to increase their throughput by sales.
mm,
Second one is reduce the inventory. Third
mm,
one is reduce the operating cost.
mm,
Right? Our guys are doing a lot of automation here. How many of the testers have been moved out of their job? Now you still have automation code, you still need same number of testers. And now we are all jumping saying that our people are losing jobs. Who's responsible for it? I somehow feel leaders are responsible for it.
mm.
Right? Once you do an automation, then why do you need so many testers? We should have trained testers to the next level of artificial intelligence.
Absolutely.
We should have gone to that path. We have not gone. So these are some aspects that the leader should start thinking.
I think very well said. I somehow feel Anand in this enterprise agile transformation, the EQ factor, emotional quotient, is greater than the IQ. And this is where we need to play a lot of emphasis that we have been so long talking about. And thanks to the father of management, he said only the management can change the system. So uh, I do not know, when I started my first company, the first transformation that I have been a part of, I initially saw only agile means team level adoption of few iterative development practices, probably not knowing what benefit will it bring to the team, bring to the company. So, unless somebody came and asked us about, hey guys, you have been doing this for so long, what did you reap out of it? Nobody thought about it even in the first place. So, And then there came this leader and he said, you know what? Agility to me is not just delivering stuff over and over. Uh, can I know about what's the last time you guys failed? Be it your production launch or be it your build failures. Can you tell me when did you fail last? So people were really shy to even speak up. And then he said, you know what? If your bills look green over and over, I'm more concerned that we are heading for a disaster. And he happened to be one of a very rare breed of leaders that I have come across in my life. He was a Dutch. And he said, you know what? Uh, we have to educate the culture of failing fast. It's okay. Failing is not a sin. But then if as leaders we tell our people that if you fail, it's a bad or it's a sin, then people are going to only show good, the positives which are false positivity. And that is agility. So I think thanks to, that's where the inspiration to succeed comes when you have the great leaders who share that, who can empathize for the values that Agile truly believes in it. So, would you
Let me
have
give
any
an
such
let me give an
experience
example.
that you would
Let me
like to
give an
share
a
with our audience?
Yeah, I have an example, but it's not my example. But what happens in Toyota is what I'm going to tell you. We have this concept of and/or card in Toyota. So anybody in the production line of a car finds a problem. The problem could be as small as the screw is slightly bigger in diameter. The screw is not fitting properly, or the screw is slightly smaller. The hole is slightly bigger. They pull the car to bring the whole production line down.
Mhm.
Right. So for some people, it looks very silly, but the concept is the cost of rework is very high. So we cannot
Mm.
leak any production, any issues to the production. So that's the concept. Now, imagine if you try to bring the same culture to our software teams. Now, every time we find a bug, so what happens over a period of time is you start predicting how much defects you will get within the iteration. For every
Mm.
build, this is a culture we have. How many defect prediction? So if you don't get so many defects, then there is a problem, right? But what happens is when you don't get defects, you actually celebrate. Oh, our quality has improved. Nobody really checks, are we doing the right things to catch the defect? But what happens in Toyota, the chief engineer gets panic. The chief engineer calls everybody and says, hey guys, looks like we have a problem. The problem is we are not getting any defects. We are not
Ah,
pulling the under card. So are we leaking defects?
mm,
Do you see the big paradigm change in the thought process?
absolutely.
Right. So we celebrate here just because we could not catch defects without even realizing, was it our inability to catch defects, or
Mm.
was it really doing a good job? If you've done a good job, it's great. But 90% of the time we would have not done a good job. We would have missed out a few things. But there, people get afraid if they don't catch defects. They're afraid that they may be leaking defects to the customer. This paradigm change in the mindset is required when you really care for the customers. This is what I call as quality, not writing good code. Good code is a part of quality, but the real quality is the emotional connect, which says I cannot leak even one defect to my customer. That's what is required in order to build great teams.
Absolutely. So we have one question, Anand, that has come from our listeners. Uh, Before I take that, I just wanted to connect one example where very well aligned with what you're saying. So uh, it's about, I had a team, while in my coaching engagement, I happened to deal with this team who had this pressure of very stringent timelines. And you know what? This team, has decided that they are just going to do the development and ship to the production. And I was very curious to know how would the feedback mechanism come in the process because they have no times to test. And then the reaction was, you know what, Mahesh, we are measured for releasing in time, not for the defects. So if we have a defect, it comes from the production. So then I asked them, hey, how many of you own cars here? There were few hands. And I said, you buy a car, how would it be if the brake in the car doesn't work? And you'd know it when you drive it. And then there was absolute silence. So that to me is that emotional connect, the empathy for the customer, going back to our manifesto on customer collaboration. So that's where I truly believe that measures and metrics, unless they are outcome centered, it's not going to really be an agile organization. And I think the question that we have now is from Satish Kumar, who has asked us, hey, we have the managers versus leaders. What does that mean in terms of skill sets and the mindsets required for someone to change from a manager to a leader? Would you like to uh, take that, Anand?
Yeah. See, manager role was required to get the job done from a set of people when all instructions were ready to be done, right? But a leader is a person who inspires people to do. Gone are those days when we have uh, requirements. We used to call it as requirements freeze, right? Which means to say that the requirements will not even shake. We exactly know what the customer want is the kind of a mindset, right? These were the days when large organizations wanted to computerize their actual work. They wanted to IT enable their work. So you are exactly knowing what is happening. Now I think we have passed that phase. Now we are dealing with complex problems. The kind of problems that we are dealing today with: how to reduce infant mortality rate in India, how to
Hmm.
reduce pollution in India, how to improve the quality of life in India, how to help our people to save money. So these are complex problems. And as Dave Snowden explains in his decision making framework called as Kenavin framework, complex systems are systems where action and response are not related. You don't know what to do, right? Every time you will have to probe something, you have to analyze it and then take a decision. That's
Hmm.
exactly what Scrum is all about. Plan something, work on it, show a demo, take feedback from it. And that's exactly the model we use in complex systems. There's a big change in the mindset of managers that we need, even leaders for that matter here. So the manager is no more task driven. The manager is now purpose driven. When you
Hmm.
get into purpose driven activities, you have to enable your people. You have to trust your people, right? It is not that I am the subject matter expert. This is what I simply call as something. This it's my model which I use a lot. It's called as the KYMS model that I apply. KYMS is keep your mouth shut,
Wow.
right?
That's the
So
hardest thing to do.
yes, that's the hardest thing to do. You tend to give solutions. You get to solve problems because you believe you know the problem, and this is exactly what Peter Senge calls in his book called the curse of knowledge.
Hmm.
Right? This is what we have to change. This mindset we need to change. And what about skill set? The leader should have high listening skills. The leader should have high observation skills, should have high empathy for people, should allow out of the box thinking, right? For example, if you see the case of Kodak, right, there is something called disruptive innovation.
Hmm.
Once upon a time, a camera was as big as a server, as today's servers what we have, huge desktop servers. The camera was as big as that. I mean, if you have to travel with that camera, it was a huge another check-in luggage once upon a time. Now this guy started thinking. His name is I don't remember his name. Eastman. His name is Eastman. He
Hmm.
started thinking, why the hell we are doing this? Why can't I
Hmm.
design something where I can keep in the pocket and go? So he designed something. That is how he said, if I have to get this big box out, I have to create a camera roll, which can actually roll, not instead of a small flat surface. And this innovation changed the whole world of cameras. These kind of inspirational activities will come only when you kind of allow people to fail, allow people to think out of the box. So these are some changes that the managers should change. Even leaders today in India have to do a lot of change. They don't trust people. It may sound very offensive, but well, this is the fact. I hardly find leaders who actually trust their people. They don't trust. They want everything to be read on their own. Ask a question to a leader. Will you be ready to put your career in the hands of your people? 99% of the answer is silence, which means no. That's the change what we need to get.
Excellent. So I think very well said. So uh, I think that captures the essence of what it means between a manager versus a leader, and we really want lean agile leadership who can apply systems thinking to all the complex problem that we have in the industry today. So I think that's a great analogy, Anand. Thank you very much.
Let me also give a small example about the change in mindset. Right?
Sure.
What problems are we solving today actually are because of solutions that we created yesterday.
Ah,
Right? We never think like a system and solve problems. We treat it like allopathy. Instead of a systemic treatment, we give it as a symptomic treatment. We just address the symptom, and the problem is resolved. We never address the side effect of the problem. I'll just give you a small story. The biggest change that the leaders need to focus today is to help people, not problem solving,
ah,
problem dissolving. Because if you solve problem today, you will give rise to one more problem tomorrow. So we need to dissolve the problem. I'll give you a simple example. There was a building which was built around Second World War in New York City, which hosted a lot of consulting organizations.
mhm,
It was a 14 floor organization, and all these consulting organizations started cribbing, saying that it approximately takes 2 to 3 minutes for people to come from 14th floor to ground floor. They have
mm,
to wait. So they said that they would pull out of the organization. And in New York, it is extremely expensive. You can't afford to lose people. So what happened? This organization, the group of people who were owning this building, called a consulting organization, spent about $1 million, and these guys did some consulting and gave three solutions and went away. They
ah,
said, first is add additional lifts, which means you will reduce the office space. So the break-even period is about 15 years from now,
mm,
which is not a business viable solution. Second one is they said increase the speed of your elevators. The third one they said is use computer oriented elevators, but still you will not be able to reach the industry's American standard time of 20 seconds wait time. The moment you press the lift button, you need to get the lift open in 20 seconds. That's the American standard. They said you cannot reach it. So these guys were worrying what to do. So they called everybody in the room and said, guys, let's do problem solving. And right, across the world, when somebody gives a solution, if one person gives a solution, there are 99 people to beat the fellow saying the solution will not work.
ah,
So people came up with ideas, and none of them worked. There
mm,
was one HR guy who was silently watching all these things, and he was silent. So this guy who was facilitating the workshop asked the HR guy, can you talk? This guy said, look, I'm a psychology guy. How should I know how to solve these problems? Your great engineers could not solve. He said, it's okay, you solve the problem. He gave a problem, 1 week, $500, problem resolved forever.
mm,
He did not solve the problem, he dissolved the problem. All he said is, why are people worried? People are worried because they have to wait.
mm.
They have to wait. Why don't you engage them? How do you engage people in the lift lobby? He said, put mirrors. Every woman folks will go and start putting on their makeup. So the obvious question was, what would male do? They
Mm.
said they would start staring at the woman.
Ah,
That is why you see even today across the globe, in the
mm,
ground floor lift lobby, you have mirrors. So here the problem was not solved, the problem was dissolved. So as leaders, we need to start thinking this way, how to dissolve problems instead of solving problems.
Great. So I think I just wanted to reiterate our Twitter handle in case someone has joined us in the last few minutes. So those of you would like to ask some questions to myself or Anand, you can tweet in hashtag RSGI 2017, and we can see your questions over here. So I think we have over close to 15 minutes. So maybe we'll try and see if there are any questions that we would be happy to talk about. So as we come to the closure of this evening, uh, what do you think are Anand, some of the major criterias? We have talked about this metaphor, right, where leadership is all about moving from ice creams to candles. So uh, how does that translate into the key takeaways for someone to successfully lead an enterprise?
See, both ice creams and candles both melt. Like both melt, both become water. The wax becomes water, the ice cream becomes water. But end of the day, what happens is the ice cream will not give any light. The candles will give light. So leadership is all about melting yourself and showing light to others.
Mm.
I don't think there is any other leadership example that we can take. We're so fortunate to be born in India, and Mother India has produced one of the greatest leaders in the world is Mahatma Gandhi.
Absolutely. Be the
He
change you want to see.
yes, and that is slightly changing now.
Mm.
Even Gandhi, like Darwin's theory also said that survival of the fittest. Even that has changed today. It is survival of the fittest and the fastest. And Gandhi said, "Be the change you want to see." Today, the leaders want to see the change they want to be.
Mm.
So you need to see the change what you want to be. Then only people will believe and move forward. Right. So what I want to, what I mean, as a concluding note, what I wanted to tell was, an ice cream is good to taste, but it doesn't help anybody. Whereas a candle, there is no taste in the candle, but it produces light, and many people in our country still use candles in their home. So if the leaders start thinking themselves as not being those ice creams, but being a candles where they can melt and show the value of the leadership to the organizations and customers, I think the world will be a better place to live with.
Absolutely. So I wanted to, take another point before we close. I wanted to bring the go back to leading change by John Cotter, where what's the motivation to change? That's where we started this call. Most companies, we do not know why are we building what we are building. Many at the times, someone at a team level who writes few lines of code doesn't understand the business problem he's trying to solve. He or she needs inspiration, not just to succeed himself or herself, but for the enterprise to succeed on its goal. And where does that inspiration come from? That is leadership. Most companies that I have seen, we have talked enough about managers versus leaders, but there are very few companies that really get to enjoy the great leaders. So a lot of the times, we haven't come across what it means to be a good leader, and this is where I believe that it all starts with us. Yep, leadership is an art, but then does it something that we cannot change? There is no precious time. So I think the very famous Chinese proverb, people say the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Why not now? So I think there are various ways and means of doing it. So if a leader had to really, what happened that we all witnessed in last quarter, Q4 of last year, demonetization, where everybody asked, "Are you willing to support the change? Yes or a no?" There was a urgency to change for the better. We don't know whether it's good or bad now, but at least a lot of people have now gone to digital money. So we are seeing benefits definitely as an economy. So, and there is no pain, no gain. So to me, leader, one of the key things that great leaders tend to do is just not to be likable, but to really be admirable.
Yeah.
So that's where good companies and the best companies, continue to add value to the society. So with that closing thoughts, I would like to say,
Just one
thank
point
you to
before we
all of you.
close,
Yeah,
Mahesh.
go ahead.
Just only one point. I was recently looking at a video from Raghu Raman, one of the ex servicemen, and he makes a beautiful statement. He says terrorism now has to be handled by everybody. It is not just the army and the police kind of a work, right?
Mm.
When a country does not want to have tolerance for terrorism, but a country like India has tolerance for uh, people believing that Ganesha drinks milk,
Ah,
right? You have so much of tolerance to believe that an idol can drink milk, And today, he's trying to talk in such a way that the whole nation feels that dealing terrorism is everybody's job. That is something what a leader must do. If the leader can kind of inspire everybody in the organization to move forward in the right direction, that's probably the greatest leader that we can work with.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I think what a great note on that to really, close this evening. So I don't see much questions after that. So if there are no more questions, we would really want to thank each and everybody to spare this evening and listen to us now. We hope the time was valuable. Feel free to share any feedback about this conversation that you just witnessed with me and Anand. And we really look forward to meet each and everybody who joined this conversation and the call today in the regional Scrum Gathering India that's scheduled on 6th and 7th of September in Bangalore. And if you haven't registered yet, here is an opportunity. You should do that. Thank you very much once again. Let's inspire agility. Good evening. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.